Hi, welcome to Q&A Tuesday on the 27th of October. This week someone had a problem that she's a food addict and she feels like she's either on the program or off the program. She's doing the Eat More to Weigh Less program and she feels like there's no in between, so it's an all or nothing black and white phenomenon. And she's wondering why, and if she's the only one, and what she can do about it. And this is a great topic, and it has to do with something that psychologists call the what the hell effect. And that's the real scientific term for it. And so the what the hell effect goes something like this. So you start a new diet or weight loss attempt or a healthy eating plan, and then something happens that leads you to break your plan and you think, what the hell, I've already blown it, I might as well gorge myself and I'll start again on Monday. For some reason it's always Monday. And this is really common, and the more highly susceptible someone is to the power of addictive foods, the more likely they are to experience this. And starting the Eat More to Weigh Less program can cause someone to fall into kind of a cycle of being on the program or off the program, on, off, on, off. And there are some reasons for this. In the brain, what happens is that when you are a food addict, when you are addicted to food or susceptible to particular foods, you've got some neural pathways established that are really entrenched. And then when you start Eat More to Weigh Less and you learn about a whole food plant-based diet, you start putting little dams up, and you don't let any neural energy down those pathways anymore, and you start to create some new neural pathways in the brain, and your brain rewires. But what happens is that those old riverbeds are still there. So when you start to let neural energy down that path with one little slip, it can easily become like a torrent. And it's like, oh yeah, I remember how to do this, and before you know it, things are flowing just the way they used to. And what I would really like to focus on here is the psychological reasons for this. And I think it has something to do with a dieting mentality as opposed to an identity shift that's happened for you mentally. So the thinking with the what the hell effect is, I'm on a diet, I'm trying to lose weight, oops, I blew it, well, I've blown it for today anyway, and so whatever scorecard I'm using in my mind to keep track, it's all ruined for today, and so I might as well take this opportunity to eat all those foods that I'm going to be depriving myself of in the future, and I know I'll be good then, so I have an opportunity now to eat all that stuff, and I'll get a fresh, pristine, perfect start in the future, tomorrow, Monday, whatever. And that's a typical dieting mentality. And the alternative to that is a mentality that thinks of a whole food plant-based diet as an identity shift, involving all of the physical, the health, the environmental, the spiritual, and the ethical factors around food. So let's talk about veganism for a moment, because it's a dietary change, but it tends not to lead to the what the hell effect. So when someone's vegan for ethical reasons and then they eat some meat or cheese on a one-off occasion for, I don't know, whatever reason, it can be quite easy to do that by accident, or if you didn't read the ingredients list carefully enough, or a server at a restaurant doesn't know what vegan means and tells you that something's vegan when it's not. It tends, when that happens, it tends not to lead to binging on meat. So even though meat and cheese have been shown to be addictive foods, so people who are ethical vegans don't tend to think, well, I've blown it now, I might as well eat all the dead animal carcass that I can and I'll go cruelty free on Monday. That's not the thinking that they have, right? And the reason is that being vegan for ethical reasons is an identity thing. It's, this is who I am and what I believe, and therefore if I had to deviate from it a little bit for whatever reason, I want to make sure I don't deviate too far and I get back really quickly, because I don't resonate anymore with that pathway. That's not who I am. So I really encourage you to make that mindset shift, to educate yourself about veganism and the effect of animal agriculture on the planet, and really examine your own values and be prepared to question whether your values truly support the farming and killing of animals for your palate pleasure. And I think this is the easiest first step to take for most people who have come from a standard Aotearoa diet or a standard Australian diet or American diet or whatever. And once you've made that identity shift to being vegan, see if you can make a similar identity shift to becoming a person who doesn't eat sugar, oil and flour anymore. Someone who doesn't eat all day long anymore, and who doesn't abuse themselves with food anymore. And that identity shift isn't something that we can kind of cajole ourselves into or talk ourselves into. It's built brick by brick, one day at a time. And as we orient to a whole food, plant-based lifestyle and identity, it will become who we are. And in order for this to happen, there are a couple of things that we can start doing. We can start by watching our language. Our language is very powerful. So instead of saying either out loud or saying in our heads, oh, no thanks, I can't eat cake, I can't have that. You know, I can't have that is the I'm on a diet mentality. So it's a deprivation thing. Instead, an identity place is, oh, I don't eat sugar, no thank you, I don't eat cake. Do you hear the difference? And another example of how language can be used to shape what's going on in our heads is when people say that they've been really good today or they've been good this week on their diet. So the mentality for that statement is that my identity is that I'm a person who eats crap, and today I didn't, so I'm really good. So in effect, when you talk to yourself in that way or talk out loud to other people to say that you've been good today or good this week, what you're really saying with your words is that eating healthfully is not who you are. You are someone else and you've just been good today. So think about the identity and in particular the action steps for you to take. So I'd like to kind of invite you to bring more awareness to the point of break, the point of where you have eaten something that's not part of the program, because it's a point where we often kind of numb out and we sort of throw our hands in the air and surrender responsibility, and it feels like a relief to do that. You know, oh well, this thing is bigger than me, so right now I'll just eat. And I would like to invite you to practice 4 strategies to help you with this problem, because this what the hell effect is one of the biggest reasons people fail to lose weight, and especially why they fail to keep it off after they've lost it, and how quickly you can get back on track after making a mistake, because you're human and not perfect, and you've eaten something that's not on your plan, and how quickly you can get back on track from that is a huge predictor of success. So there's some ways to take every single bite that we take that's off our plan and put it to good use. And we need to question what happens at that point of surrender, of breaking our plan. You know, this is the point that everything hinges on. What's going on at that point? If we can figure out what that break was about, if we can learn the lessons from it that we're meant to learn and get back on our plan quickly, we can keep on losing weight. We can keep that weight off, and we can strengthen our system and steel it against future similar occurrences like that. You know, here in Christchurch during the earthquakes, it was actually the modern buildings of steel and concrete that crumbled and fell because they couldn't sway. They weren't flexible enough. Now, many of the buildings that are being built to replace them are being built from wood, which is more flexible and it will sway in an earthquake. Now, if you have a problem with food, that means that you are prone to earthquakes. Shit's going to happen and you'll come off your plan. And you need to build your plan of flexible material that will sway and allow you to get back on track quickly, instead of crumbling and having to kind of rebuild again from scratch each time that happens. So what do you do in that moment? Now, there are 4 ways that falling off your plan can be adaptive and helpful. 1 is speed, 2 is self-love, 3 is social support, and 4 is self-examination. So the 4 S's. So first, speed. Once you become aware, you become responsible. In that moment, how quickly do you start to get back to your plan? How quickly do you start to take steps to rescue yourself from the situation? So minutes or hours as opposed to days, weeks, months. You know, a day, half a day is kind of okay, but try to get it shorter. Try to get it down to 10 minutes or an hour. Like, the minute you become aware, start to take action to make sure that the break you're in the middle of having is an adaptive, helpful one that you can learn from. The second is self-love. So, do you talk to yourself nicely? Do you treat yourself like a best friend who's going through a hard time? None of the rah, rah, rah. You know, some people really beat themselves up in their heads over this stuff. And they say nasty, nasty things. So try self-love instead of that. Number 3, social support. How quickly can you call someone who's supportive of your weight loss efforts? Maybe you've got a buddy you can call. Rally social support. Make sure you are not alone in facing this. And then finally, self-examination. You should all have a journal that you use, that you used for your goals, that you use for your fortnightly reflections. So write in your journal about what were the thoughts that led you to believe your saboteur, that led you into that break. You know, there was some kind of thinking that was going on there that was not helpful. Write about it. Write about, were you using your tools leading up to this? Were you actually planning your meals with your meal planner? Were you completing your fortnightly reflections? Were you going over your goals each day when you wake up before you go to bed? Were you sending in your reality checks for me for comment, for me to hold you accountable? Write also about how do you feel now? Write about what you could do differently next time. Write about that thinking that preceded the break and what you could say to yourself next time that would be adaptive. How else could you handle that social situation? Maybe write your answers on note cards that you can go through and review daily. Now, these are things that I can say to myself when that saboteur is talking me into going off my plan. So I realize it's not the easier, softer, kind of looser path to get back on track from this stuff. It takes some effort. But if you're willing to examine that point, the point of the break, and start taking steps to get back on track quickly and to guard against this happening again, instead of just saying, well, what the hell, you really can get out of this cycle. I promise. So that's my A to your Q. Thank you for your question and thanks for listening. If you have a problem or a question that you would like some help with, go ahead and email it in. I'll talk with you next on Tuesday the 10th of December. Gosh, can you believe that? And until then, take care until next time, and bye-bye.